Yes.
Good morning, Speakeasy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome. Our president is gone today, but ably filling in for him is our assistant vice president of a lot of things, Craig Larkin.
As we can see, Mary started early on table topics. Accuracy is not required. Ably filling in. Karen, could you please start us with the prayer and pledge?
Sure. Life dishes out many hurdles and obstacles for us to cross. When our time on this earth is done, I want someone to say of me that I fought the good fight, I have finished the course, I've kept the faith, and I've went the distance. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do I have a volunteer to read the mission of a club?
The mission of a Toastmasters club is to provide a supportive and positive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. Hooah!
Want to welcome Tim and Michael to our meeting, our guests.
Okay.
Both here perhaps with reasons more than just our attractiveness, and a great meeting coming up on Tuesday morning here at 6:30 in the morning. Old business we have. I will get out a query again to everyone, but please, on the 18th, I believe it is, 17th or 18th, we are having another executive committee meeting, and we are going to discuss, one of the topics is going to be what we would like to spend 2.5 hours over the next 6 months in Speakeasy discussing. So please send me your ideas that might be of value to investing that much club time and that might help make us better. Any new business? Pat?
Dues are due, $50 for the April through September period is due. I've got probably 6 or 7 folks that have paid so far. So we need that in the next couple of weeks from everyone. And also I need a motion, the awards that we gave out last week at the contest. I wish I had the receipt, I don't have it. It's about $35, so it was cheaper than we normally have done. And I need a motion to pay that, which I've already paid.
Do I have a motion to reimburse Pat, or actually to authorize the purchase that he made of a, anyway,
So moved.
I second.
all right. I hope I know what I said.
Motion to reimburse Pat for awards that were given out at the speech contest.
And I have a second? Mary seconded.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Any other new business? I conclude the business portion of our session. And now, going the distance, staying the course, our one and only Professor Rich Reiner. Welcome, our Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you, Craig Larkin, Acting President. Appreciate your being here this morning. Good morning. You see, we have a cameraman here. With your permission today, we hope that you would allow us to film you during the meeting. Ed Patterson is suggesting that he is objecting.
I'm not objecting, I wasn't asked.
Okay, well, we're asking you kindly now that if this could be used for our distance learning communication class, so that if they are 75 miles away from a Toastmaster meeting in Montana, that they could download a little link and presto, find a Toastmaster meeting that they could watch. That's why we're doing this. Question from the Chief of Police formerly.
Do we get royalties for that?
Do we get royalties? Yes, you do. You could have an extra cup of coffee over there this morning. Our two guests, welcome. Glad you're here this morning. Good to see you all. Are you a student at the university?
I'm in Sandy's class.
Oh, fantastic.
He's in the good class.
She's in the good class.
Yeah, I'm in her 6 p.m. class.
Fantastic. Sandy Robinson, as you might not know, was voted the adjunct professor of the year a couple of years ago. Outstanding professor. So you are a lucky man. Who's our other guest?
Tim.
Oh, Tim. Tim. Welcome, Tim.
Man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You've been keeping me in focus today. That's going to be a tough job to do. Thank you all. Welcome, everybody. Our theme today is Going the Distance. Going the Distance. And it is in honor of the man who on March 8th, 1961, he flew a light plane around the world. Obviously, he had to stop a few places to do it. Think about it. It was 25,000 miles around the equator. He crossed the equator twice. He did this in 8 days, so approximately 2,500 miles a day, where he had to land in different places to do this. His name was Max Conrad, and he has a website. It's called the Master Aviator. And when did you go the distance? Achieve a goal that you'd never achieved before, done something for the first time, and maybe it was very successful. So Max Conrad flew a Piper Aztec around the world, 8 days, 8 hours, 49 minutes, stopping to refuel. In your long distance, did you have to stop to refuel? So we are taking off today from Rainbow's lower level field. This is the field. We're warming up our engines, getting ready to take off. Let's confirm our roles, and we'll begin with our WAG master, Karen Grove. Karen, would you tell us about the word of the day?
Karen is actually Corky.
Word of the day is endurance. The fact or power of enduring an unpleasant or difficult process or situation without giving way. Synonyms are toleration, sufferance, and forbearance. The WAG will be listening for any filler words, ahs, ums, you knows, so's, whatever you use. On ahs and ums, and maybe other filler words, I may ring this bell. I may not, because I'm sometimes getting a little bit older and I don't pay attention.
Thank you, Corky. We will begin our self-introductions, and it's okay to go up to 30, 40 seconds on our self-introductions this morning, because we have a little more time than usual. And so we'll begin our self-introductions over here with Megan Vanderheuvel.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and guests. My name is Megan Vanden Heuvel, and I am the morning coordination meteorologist for the National Weather Service here in Great Falls. And going the distance, a couple years ago, I did a 50K mountain bike race down in Grand Targhee. Not only was it 30 miles, but it was also at about 9,000 to 10,000 feet. So it was a little more difficult to breathe than normal. So that was a situation where I went the distance and had to endure a lot of pain in order to finish.
Fellow Toastmasters and most honored guests, my name is Scott Radford. I'm a local lawyer. Going the distance, I've had to be a member of the Uptown Optimists for many years, and I've had to suffer, endure Ev Hall's constant encouragement.
Toastmaster, guests, fellow Toastmasters, my name is Randy Knowles, and I've gone the distance a couple of times. Recently, I concluded a 4-year lawsuit that opened up a road to about 250,000 acres of public land. And about 12 years ago, I went the distance with the state of Montana. They think I lost that battle, but they don't know that I'm not done yet.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests. Well, obviously, I've gone a lot of distances. I believe one of the most fun ones was a few years ago. I was approached about going to the National Toastmasters meeting in Las Vegas. Well, I have relatives in Las Vegas, so I decided that would be the thing to do. And it was amazing watching the best speakers in the world. I thought to myself, I wonder what I'm doing here. But I met very interesting people, and I met a young lady from New York. The only thing we had in common was we were both widows. We exchanged phone numbers. I did not think I would ever hear from her again, but she has been a friend and calls me every holiday, and we exchange news about each of our Toastmasters Club, and it's been a great thing.
Good morning. I'm Johanna, an AmeriCorps member here in Great Falls. I felt like I went the distance this past weekend when I went running for the first time in 5 months, and it took endurance to run those 5 or 6 blocks, but it felt great to get out there again.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and guests. My name is Ed Patterson. I'm a local insurance agent. I feel like I'm still going the distance. I don't think I've ever quit. I don't tend to ever stop. And on top of people me going the distance, my daughter is going the distance, and sometime tomorrow, grandchild number 2 should arrive. So.
F Hall School District number 1, I think there's a lot of different kinds of endurance tests and going the distance. And of course, Toastmasters for me is one of those things. I've been involved in Toastmasters since 1973 with continuous membership, so that's a pretty long time. Next week, I'll be concluding my 38th year with the Junior Toastmasters here in Great Falls as we reach the end of our speaking and look forward to our banquet after Easter. I've also been teaching in this district for 31 years, 32 total, with Cascade, and announced my retirement a week ago. So I have gone the distance a lot of times. Of course, Carol and I have been married for 44 years. We've been happily married for 38. I don't know what happened to the other few. Anyway, it's just a lot of milestones.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Pat Terry, retired FAA operations manager. I did go the distance. 3 years before he became a Toastmaster, in 1970, I rode my bicycle the entire around Lake Tahoe, 35 miles the first day, 35 miles the second day. Cool. I didn't bring water, I didn't bring food. I had a place to stay on the opposite end. The only hazard I had was when I was on the Nevada side, up in the mountainous areas. There was some juveniles who were driving past me not only once, 2 or 3 times, and threw beer bottles at me. Yes. That was about the only thing. And for those of you that didn't know, we're not changing the order or the way we have the table set up. This is how we found it when we came in the morning. So with Michael's help, Mary and I moved all the chairs from the middle, and we'll go back that way next week.
Good morning, Toastmasters. My name is Michael Tom. I feel as if I went the distance when I began college at the at Great Falls College MSU, in which I began the pursuit of my associate's degree in business management while minoring in liberal arts. I did graduate and then was recruited to UGF, where I've participated in the performing arts program and have been in 3 plays. So I feel in regards to going the distance, I've given it the college try. Thank you.
Yeah, Ray Coteen, Coteen Life Insurance, and Northwest Investment Advisors. I
feel like I'm going the distance, that's for sure, and haven't reached it yet. Relationships, wife, kids, family, all the relationships here in Toastmasters. The distance isn't over yet. But the endurance part of it, that's what's key. And there's a poem there, I like to think. There isn't anybody with endurance like the man or woman who sells insurance. A shameless plug.
Karen Grove, I work for Davidson Trust Company. And I kind of take a cue from what Ed said about his daughter having her baby tomorrow. I think any mother who carries a child for 9 months, listens for 9 months of what awaits her at the end of that 9 months from everybody who has a little bit of expert advice to give you. And one person told me, described it like this: don't worry, it's just like pushing an elephant through a keyhole. So I think any mother who's had a baby has gone the distance and has endured quite a bit. So that's been my going the distance.
Morning, fellow Toastmasters guests. Corky Grove, retired from the city of Great Falls. Life is an endurance.
Good morning, Michael Tim, fellow Toastmasters Craig Larkham, going the distance. In July of 1973, I lived in Mexico Beach, Florida. White sands, just gorgeous. And some reason I had the wild hair of an idea that I would ride my bicycle, which was a crappy old 5-speed Sears bicycle, from Mexico Beach all the way to the end of the spit at Apalachicola, which is really a fantastic ride. However, it does happen to be 100 miles long. I was very sore at the end of it, and it took endurance that I maybe didn't have.
Hi, my name is Rich Briner. I teach at the University of Great Falls, and I am remembering that speeches are like babies. They're easier to conceive than they are to deliver. And that's going the distance. When you can deliver a baby or you can deliver a speech, going the distance. And being evaluated like we do. Welcome, Michael, welcome, our guest today. Glad you're here. And also Tim, our cameraman. Let's go to our other roles today. Our timer is Pat Terry. Pat, what's happening today?
Yes, for the benefit of Tim and Michael, we keep track of the time of the speeches, the table topics, and the evaluations. When the green light comes on, it's getting time to wrap it up. Then there's an orange, yellowish light, meaning you're getting really close to finishing. And then when the red light comes in, you have 30 seconds to wrap it up. And I'm also the ballot counter.
Thank you, Pat. And our general evaluator today is Everett Hall. Where did he go? Oh, there he is.
I'm sitting here next to Pat. I'm not that small and hard to miss. My job is to run the evaluation part of the meeting.
Thank you for your elaboration. Our joke master today is Karen Grove. Karen, go for it.
Okay. This morning I decided to do some brain teasers on going the distance. So the first one for all of you to contemplate is, who is the fastest runner of all time? Adam, because he's the first in the human race. What do you get when you run behind a car?
Exhausted.
Exhausted. Good job,
That's
Randy.
right.
That brain's awake and running. And why do runners go jogging early in the morning?
So they're home by lunch?
They want to finish before their brain figures out what they're doing.
Wow.
What do runners do when they forget something?
They run again.
They jog their memory.
Okay.
And words of wisdom. Before you criticize someone, you should walk a mile in their shoes. That way, when you criticize them, you're a mile away and you have their shoes.
Thank you, Jared. We've done the preliminaries of our meeting. That's usually the first part. The second part is our prepared speeches, and we'll begin that prepared segment of our meeting just with one little fact about Mr. Conrad, Mr. Max Conrad, who flew the distance around the world in a light plane. He had 10 kids. 10 kids. Wow. Didn't spend a lot of time with him because he was up in the air an awful lot. Okay, we move on to our first speaker. Our first speaker has an evaluator, Ed Patterson.
Yes.
What is Craig Larkham doing this morning?
Craig will actually be doing a speech from the Advanced Communication Manual called Communicating on Video, which is a new one to me. He'll be doing project number 1, Straight Talk. The objective is to present an opinion in a short period of time and to video it. It should have a cause, a firm conviction. It should show evidence of his cause, reasoning, and logical development. And it should be short, like 3.5 minutes.
Thank you, Ed. This morning, our studio audience will observe something a little different from normal. We get to watch the filming of an editorial scheduled for broadcast later on this week. Please quietly attend as Craig Larkham records his opinion piece, Can You Feel the Ground Shaking? Craig Larkham.
A tremor shook the United States Saturday, February 13th. The death of Associate Justice Antonin Scalia brings a seismic shift to the Supreme Court and judicial landscape. Can you feel the ground shaking? An intellectual, Scalia wrote articulate, logical, and above all, explicitly law-based decisions and dissents. His razor-sharp wit and scathing dissents were not popular. Scalia's constitutional viewpoint particularly provoked opposition. An originalist, Scalia believed the Constitution's meaning was fixed at enactment. It means what a reasonably competent individual would understand the language written to say. In Scalia's words, the Constitution is, quote, a legal document, and it says what it says, and it doesn't say what it doesn't say, unquote. Reaction to his position was strong. In opposition, activists developed the living Constitution concept, which frees jurists to adapt the Constitution to societal preferences and governmental needs. Is a living Constitution good? Yes, for unfettered federal government intervention. Yes, for compelling societal change from the bench. Is a living Constitution bad? Yes, for functionally separate branches of government. Yes, for the law, untwisted by current fancy. Yes, for constitutional modification via amendment. And yes, especially bad for we the people, whose main protection from intrusive government has been the Constitution. In his dissent to the same-sex marriage decision, Scalia wrote, quote, with each decision of ours, which takes from the people a question properly left with them, with each decision which unabashedly is based not on law, but on the reasoned judgment of a bare majority of this court, we move one step closer to being reminded of our impotence, unquote. Perspective on the living Constitution is found in all places in Through the Looking Glass. You know the passage. When I use a word, Humpty Dumpty said in rather a scornful tone, it means just what I choose it to mean, neither more nor less. The question is, said Alice, whether you can make a word mean so many different things. The question is, said Humpty Dumpty, which is to be mastered. That's all. Scalia's dissent carried the decision to its logical conclusion. Quote, today's decree says that my ruler and the ruler of 320 million Americans coast to coast is a majority of the 9 lawyers on the Supreme Court, unquote. Judicial and social activists relish the opportunity to fill the vacant Supreme Court position with a like-minded jurist. Can you feel the ground shaking now?
Whoa, good.
Our second speaker has an evaluator, and by the way, as you are making some, hopefully you make some comments to our speakers. Try to comment on this sheet. You can tear it into a little and pass it on to the speakers. They'll appreciate it. Catch them doing some things right and make a suggestion on how to make a good speech better. Our second speaker has an evaluator. Ray Coteen.
Yes, I'm Ray Coteen. I'm evaluating Rich's speech out of the Humorously Speaking Manual. Impact, feedback, and evaluation is critically important to improving, and I'm looking to help Rich do that today. He'll be speaking out of the manual. Humorously Speaking is an advanced manual, and he's in project number 3. I'll be looking for, in my discussion with Rich, how he uses dialogue and impact on making us laugh and tickling our funny bone. His uses of humor styles and his transitions that he might choose to use, particularly his skillful use of the pause. I'll report at the end of the meeting when called upon.
Thank you, Ray Coteen. Our next speaker I know well. His name is Rich Briner. He is me. He's doing a pocket speech today. As we go through life, we try to stay on the grow, to constantly try new things. And sometimes we are not successful when we try new things. What do? Our next speaker is here to address that in his speech called The Step After the Ouch. The Step After the Ouch, Rich Briner. Let's hear some applause. Raise your hand if you have ever done something for the first time and you experienced an ouch. We've all been there. There I was, 1982, Cleveland, Ohio, Sunday night at the Cleveland Comedy Club, amateur night. I went there to do a stand-up routine of 5 minutes. I even brought one of my students to sit there and watch. It was a long room. It had it was a nightclub atmosphere. The room was semi-dark. There were tables all around, probably about 75 people in the room. It was a packed room. As I got up on stage, you could look out and you could only see the first row of tables. I saw about 5 tables. They were the size of card tables. There were about 3 or 4 people at each room, and then you couldn't see the rest of the audience, but they were out there. I started my speech. I got 2 minutes into my speech when suddenly I stood there like a deer in headlights. I didn't know what to do, but I thought, I'm a speech teacher. I was standing up there with my 3-piece suit, pinstripe 3-piece suit. It was black. I figured that I would wear the same thing that I would if I was being laid out. I figured if I died on stage, they could bury me in the suit. Little did I know that that moment began at that time. But I was a speech teacher. I knew what I could do. All of a sudden, I flashed into an exercise of vocal variety that I used to use in my speech classes. And I launched into Come on, come all, see the great Madame Dido dive from the 150-foot tower into this little glass of water. All of a sudden, the people who had been not paying attention to me, who were talking amongst themselves, turned and looked. I got their attention. But at the end, I still could not remember my speech. And I walked down and went back to the table where I sat with my student. Near the end of this presentation, the MC got up and he said, "We would like to invite all 10 of our contestants up here and give them some appreciation." And I turned to the student who I brought and I said, "There's no way I'm going up there. I bombed once. Once is enough." And she says, "You need to go up there. There were 75 people here and you were among the 10 who were courageous. You need to get up there." So I got up there and took my bows. The lady who won had spiked the audience. The first half of the audience was filled with postal workers from the Cleveland Post Office. She was a postal worker, and she had kind of spiked the audience to really do anything and everything she said. And apparently, they were being rude to the rest of the speakers, talking while they were doing that. Anyway, I went home and I thought, ouch. But then I thought, I'm going to invite my running buddies to come down the following week and spike the audience, and I'll give it another try. I will take the step after the ouch. And so the following week, I got there an hour early. I signed in. I sat there in the room and I watched other contestants come in. I was waiting for my running buddies to come. And then I just got cold feet. I got up and I walked out. I did not take the step after the ouch. Fast forward 35 years. I'm in Las Vegas for a speech seminar. I'm sitting in the audience next to a guy I just met. He says, "I'm from Las Vegas, and I've been doing stand-up at amateur night for the last 6 months. I'm going Sunday night to Bonkers, a little club off the strip." And I said, "Can I go with you?" He said, "Sure." So we showed up there at an hour beforehand, and as he was signing in, he turned back and he looked at me and he said, "Rich, why don't you try this? It's only 5 minutes. You could write down 5 jokes on a napkin and get up and do it." So I signed up. I started to take the step after the ouch. Started to take the step after the ouch. My turn came. They called my name. I got up there. I had a napkin in my left hand with some jokes. And in my right hand, I had the microphone. And for the first 2 minutes, I realized that every time I said it was this big, they couldn't hear me because I was throwing the mic out here. I did this about 2 or 3 times. Only people with a PhD are that thick that they can't get the message. You got to put it under your mouth and leave it there and gesture with something. Anyway, I screwed it up. I screwed it up again. But the first 60 seconds of my speech, this is how I started. You know, I'm 64 years old tonight. And people said, a couple people started clapping. Hey, I'm 64 years old tonight, and I have to tell you that I have sex with my wife almost every night. And they're going cheering, hey, yay. Almost on Monday, almost on Tuesday, almost on Wednesday, almost on Thursday. They broke into laughter again, and some people applauded again. That was the one moment that I realized that I had taken the step after the ouch. Oh, take the step after the ouch. After you've done something for the first time, take that step. It feels so good. Mr. Toastmaster. Okay, well, thank you, Rich. A little surprise there.
Almost.
More than we want to know.
Okay, we are now moving to our prepared segment of our meeting. And here to conduct that is our table topic master. She is very comfortable in front of a camera like this, having done weather reports on television, and she is here to direct our table topic presentation today. Help me welcome Megan Vandenhavel.
You know, I think I like this side of being the table topics master versus being in your position right now, because I get to control the questions I ask and to who. So hopefully you guys are in for a treat today. So a few weekends ago, 2 weekends ago to be exact, I completed my second half marathon. My first one was in September, and that was off-road. That was on a trail. And my first one, I got a little lost on my first half as well, so it took me about 3 hours and 15 minutes to complete. But my second one that I did 2 weekends ago, it was on a road, it was in Sealy Lake, and it was called the Snow Joke. And I was like, Snow Joke, what could be so funny about running a half marathon? And what they had done is they had put these little signs up throughout the race, trying to encourage you to keep going, and little jokes like you are being followed, things like that, really corny jokes. So regardless, I finished this half marathon, and I had only ran 7 miles prior to this race. So my running hadn't quite been up there. You should run about 10 miles before you attempt a half marathon, but I had only done 7, so wasn't quite sure how this was going to go. But I finished in 2.5 hours, so I was really pleased with that time. So I went the distance, and I completed that half marathon, and I look forward to possibly a 30K this upcoming May. So I'm curious to ask you today, has there been an athletic, fitness, or recreation event that you have gone the distance on? Karen.
Has there been an athletic event or what other kind of event?
Any fitness, recreation, athletic
event? Well, I'm not really into physical events. But I have done some events that Rich's speech kind of reminded me of when I was sitting there talking, because I'm a chicken. I really don't like to put myself out there and do things. And one of the things I'm really afraid of is I don't like to go on fast rides or anything that might harm me in any way, cause me any danger. And my kids really think that's a weak character in me, so whenever we go to amusement parks, they always try to talk me into going on these crazy rides that they know I want nothing to do with. And my son said, Mom, if you really loved me, you'd go on Space Mountain with me. And I said, I have no insurance money to leave you, Ty. I don't know why you want me to go on these rides. You are not going to gain anything from it. You'll probably lose. And he says, no, Mom, I want you to do it for you. So finally, after much coaxing, I went on Space Mountain, And I absolutely had a blast on it. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I had my eyes closed the whole time. I held on to, when I got out, they had to ungrip my hands from the bar. But really, I enjoyed it. And so, to me, that was going the distance. I took that step, and I feel like I did run a marathon that day. So yes, that's the event that I really put myself out there.
Going the distance doesn't only have to do with athletics. There are times where in our jobs we have to go the distance, and we might have to do something in our job that we wouldn't typically do. Can you tell us about a time that you went the distance by going beyond the scope of your normal job? Johanna?
The time that I went the distance in my job. Well, this year as an AmeriCorps member, this is my first real job. I've never had anything aside from a college work study, not even a summer job. So I feel like I've had a lot of these moments. I feel like, especially when I've been in positions where I've had to talk to new people or be in new environments, such as going to a school and asking teachers about the breakfast program or sitting down at a table with students, or back in October during National School Lunch Week when my supervisor made me put on a giant strawberry costume and visit these elementary schools at lunch. And I was so nervous walking through the door, and I felt like I looked ridiculous in my giant strawberry costume. But when I got inside, the kids absolutely loved it. They were running up and asking me questions and giving me hugs, and it made the whole thing a little bit easier. And some of those events have taught me that I can do more than I thought I could. So those are a couple experiences of going the distance at work.
A lot of times when we travel, some of us have to travel long distances. Some of us travel across Montana, it's a pretty big state, but some of us travel across the country or maybe even across the world. Someday I hope to go to distance and cross the Canadian border, which I have yet to do in my 7.5 years here in Montana. When we travel, though, we do have to sometimes travel long distances. So can you share a travel experience that took you to a place far away from home? Scott?
Thank you. Table Topics Master, my fellow Toastmasters, most honored guests. It was after 9/11. I had a judgment against an individual in a little town south of the Canadian border. I had no idea how I was going to get it collected. But I'd been pressed by my client to somehow perform a miracle and find assets that didn't exist. Well, in these kind of cases, being clever, devious, and black-hearted, I, of course, did something I have done on a couple occasions. Went to the courthouse and found somebody the defendant, or that did not like the defendant, knew all about his personal habits, his idiosyncrasies, and the fact that he slept with every woman that might be persuasive. And with this information, I was able to turn the tables and make him excited about finding the money to pay the judgment. I'm not sure I was very proud of myself, but I did achieve it. I did go the distance. And I did learn something that was really strange and has stuck with me ever since, is that people after 9/11 were watching for each other or for others. And I was told at the hotel I stayed at that a couple of Middle Eastern extraction passed the border. And everybody, including the hotel staff, seemed to know about their behavior, their activities. They didn't know why they did the things they thought were unusual. But it was going the distance, going way out eastern Montana on horrible roads, through a reservation, and getting the job done.
As we grow older and reflect back on our lives, we look back and realize how far we've come to get to where we are today. How has the meaning of going the distance changed throughout your life? Mary.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests. How life has changed. Well, my memory isn't too good, so I have a lot of new experiences. I grew up on a farm out in the middle of nowhere. I went to a country school. I rode horseback. I did not associate with any people of my sex until I went to high school. I had 3 older brothers. It was a whole new experience when I went to high school. I found it so interesting, I completed it in 15 years. And then I went to college. And there were lots of changes then. I was fortunate my entire life. I just stumble along from one profession to another. And I ended up in banking. And there's nothing like counting money. I have found in my lifetime to go the distance. I worked at that profession for 40 years and retired, and they still pay me. And I love to count that money. So how it comes to the fact that I grew up on a farm and love to count money, but it worked for me.
We all have obstacles that we have to overcome, and there are times that we have to go to distance in order to overcome them. For me personally, I struggle with anxiety, so every day I have to go to distance to try to control it. Can you share an experience when you had to go to distance to overcome a personal obstacle? Randy?
Hail Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters and guests. I have dyslexia, and back in the 70s it was kind of like TMJ. Everyone was being diagnosed for dyslexia. So first off, my sisters were diagnosed, or my mother had them tested to see if they had dyslexia because they weren't quite performing in school. And then she thought her oldest son, who was married and had children and working, should also be tested. Well, the expert on dyslexia is in New York. And so I succumbed to her constant henpecking, and we flew back to New York to be tested. And it turned out that I have a little dyslexia. It takes me longer to do a multiple choice question than most people, because by the time I have read the question, I have forgotten what the choices are. So I have to really focus on, and I've developed a little system for how to do a true-false or a multiple guess question, and it just takes me longer. It takes me about 2.5 times longer to do a 100-question multiple guess test than the average person. I know from the tests I've taken over the years when I need to play that card. And there was a big exam in Denver that I was going to do, and I needed to play that card. So I went through my file, and I pulled out my dyslexia letter, and I faxed it in, and I said, I need 2.5 times longer than the average guy to do this test. And that's when I went the distance. Now, for that test, I really didn't need the 2.5 hours, but I did need an hour. I did need an extra hour. And they hired a special tutor. I was in a room all by myself, and the common complaint from all the other normal people was not enough time. So it really wasn't just me. That test was too cram-packed for even the brightest people to finish on time. But that's when I went the distance, because I had spent too much. I spent 7 months of studying every night, 7 days a week for that test. And I was not going to take it twice.
That's all for table topics today. I'll turn it back over to our Toastmaster, Rich Briner. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you for some delightful, provocative questions. May we have a timer's report?
You may. I'll start with the speeches. Rich Craig, 3 minutes and 23 seconds the second time around. Rich, 7:15. As table topics, Karen, everybody qualified. Karen, 146. Johanna, 119. Scott, 218. Mary, 129. And Randy, 228. Please pass your ballots this direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. And now we will move to what some people consider the most important part of our meeting, the evaluation part of the meeting. And that is going to be conducted today by a man who has been a Toastmaster longer than some of us have been alive. Ladies and gentlemen, the General Evaluator, Eb Hall.
Thank you. A daunting task at best, but I have an excellent group of helpers. We have 2 speakers today, and we will begin our evaluations by our evaluator that will be taking care of Mr. Craig and his, and that is Ed Patterson. So Ed, if you please give us your evaluation to our first speaker, Mr. Craig. There you go.
Thank you, Ed.
Straight talk. Craig's goal today was to take a current event and convince us his side of the story is the right side of the story. He was supposed to influence us. So let's take a look at that part of the speech, and I'll comment a little bit about the video part, even though I'm probably a little bit not the one that should do that, but let's talk about the speech itself. Current event. Did he meet that goal? Yes. He started out by telling us about the death of our Supreme Court Justice Antonio Scalia and what effect it's going to have on the United States. Explained to us that Justice Scalia had a definite, strong opinion about the Constitution, and that is that the Constitution is a document that exists in itself, and it is not a living document, as a lot of the progressives would like us to believe. Your presentation led us to believe, convincingly, that you agree strongly with the way Justice Scalia interpreted the Constitution, that it is a document that's to be read as is and not a living document. You went on to proceed to explain to us how this could affect, I believe it sounds like there's going to be a Supreme Court decision soon about same-sex marriage, or maybe that was a previous one. I honestly didn't follow that. But obviously with four justices going each way, and the one that's going to get put into that position someplace along the line, probably in the next 12 to 16 months, will have a lot of bearing on any decision that's made with whether it's regard to same-sex marriage or Obamacare or anything of that nature. So did you meet your goal? I think, in my opinion, you did. You presented a case that Justice Scalia was a honorable man that had some strong opinions, that had some good influence on us, and that his death could change the way things go in the United States down the line. Is there anything that I think that you could have done different? Well, the only thing, and I'm going to get into the media part a little bit here, when you started over, you were sitting there quite well the first time, but when you started over, I seemed to see the hands going a little bit, and now, I don't know, maybe Megan can tell us, when you're behind the screen, you probably can't see that. Well, when on TV, you probably can't see that. And the only other thing And I think this might help a little bit the next time you do a little more foundation, you know? So there's not so much. Other than that, it was a great speech.
I think the evaluator could use a little more foundation. just saying. We had a second speaker. It was one of those pocket speeches. I felt that I was going to hear a speech that I had heard before. And maybe I missed that meeting, because I hadn't. So I was pretty excited when I heard Rich's speech. But our evaluator is going to tell us more about it. Mr. Ray Cotini.
Thank you, Mr. Master Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, especially Rich. I just really enjoyed this speech for the same reasons I have. It is something new to you. But then I got thinking about public speakers and just how talented they are, and I heard this one comment one time. They were interviewing Paul Harvey, as some of the other speakers were, and they said, "Paul, why do you always give the same speech?" He says, "Well, why change it when it's so good?" Well, you are that. You are that, but you took a step after the ouch, and that was new to us. Because we know you so well, I was looking for that. In your stories, in your dialogues, I kept on wondering when you're going to get into the funny parts. The laid out idea, and there were some times I thought maybe you were struggling a little bit and we were looking for some sympathy laughs. But when you got to the almost, that was brilliant and great, and the timing of it was just excellent. And so I would say that that's how you could improve the speech, is give that speech in such a way that you could build up to that, because I don't know exactly how you would do that. I'm still trying to figure that out, but I liked it. I like that, and I like that. Only a PhD would do that. And that self-deprecating skill that you have. You were great on your transitions, your styles, and the use of your dialogue. You brought that friend in. She said, "You should do that," right? That friend, you should get up there and get up there and get introduced, I guess, is what it was in that dialogue. So I liked how you did that too. That was a great job, Rich, for your time.
We all enjoy laughing at Rich. So it worked out very well. We have some other helpers, though, that are going to help us learn what we could have or perhaps might have done better. My next person that I'm going to introduce is our WAG master. Corky's been getting some able assistance from Karen, but he's now going to evaluate the jobs that you have done utilizing the language that we have. Corky?
Thank you, Mr. Master Evaluator. First off, I was introduced earlier when I was called upon to go over my duty as Karen. So I wish people would make up their mind. Am I going to be Karen or am I going to be Corky? Because it has changed in this meeting. Having that aside, Rich had several statements that drew some good pictures. Take the step, cold feet, deer in the headlights. The best picture wording I heard today, though, was black-hearted from an attorney. Because in my previous life, I learned that many attorneys are black-hearted. Megan, you don't use too many ums or ahs. But boy, do you use so. I have you down for 6 so's. Scott, you had only 2 ahs, ums. Randy, you had 2 ahs. and kinda like. Kinda like. Johanna had one on. Karen, I'm sorry. Ta Sittner. I don't know how you get over that. Actually, I listened to a speech from the president a few weeks ago. And do you know, he uses ta a lot? So I'm not so sure that we're picking on people correctly. Because if the president can do it, then the rest of us can do it. So let's just do away with two and say ta.
I watch some of those people on television, presidents and others, sportscasters mostly, and I'm thinking they ought to hire me because I could fix them.
True.
And I'm about halfway serious about giving some of these people a call saying, if you want to, athletes would be really a lot of fun because not only would I have to fix their bad habits, their speech. Oh, gosh, they've never been to school where they learned any English. Or if they did, it's a different English than I learned. At any rate, our humor report comes to us right next door, and that would be Karen.
Yes. Okay, I thought we had a lot of humor today. I thought it was a very fun meeting. One of the things I thought was cute was, and someone else pointed it out, but when Rich said only PhDs are that thick, it was pretty cute. And Megan, we all had the image of you in your giant strawberry costume. Joanna, I'm sorry. And Scott, you helped your client find assets that did not exist. It's just amazing how you attorneys can do that. Memory's not too good, so I have a lot of new experiences, Mary. I love that. And I loved foundation, so you have less shine. That's my report.
Thank you. And I know that we're nearing the end of our allotted time, so I am going to ask our timer for a timer's report, and then I will conclude my remarks and move on.
Ed spoke for 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Ray Kay, 1 minute and 55 seconds. Porky, 2:11, and Karen, 49 seconds.
Thank you. My overall evaluation of the meeting includes the following. I felt that Rich was prepared. I liked the way he handled the meeting. I'm glad that he found a second speaker, someone that he knew fairly well, and so that made things go fairly well. When we moved to our table topics portion of the meeting, I was very interested in listening to Megan, and I felt that we can all learn from what she did. She gave good background information. She asked questions of people that they were able to respond to fairly easily, I thought. So she had given it some good consideration. So you did an excellent job. We can learn from you. That was done as well as anybody could have possibly done evaluations. And as I listened to the topics, I want to thank the respondents. You did a nice job of responding to the topics and stayed pretty much right there with the assignment that you were given. So that was a good job as well. Overall, this meeting was run well. You were professional, you were poised, and you were in charge, so thank you for that. Craig, I felt that you did an excellent job, and I must compliment you on stopping and starting over again. Now, I know some Toastmasters wouldn't do that, but if you were paying attention at the beginning, he said this was going to be a tape presentation, which meant that he was going to be able to edit the tape. And so for us to be able to see that in play was a good learning experience. So thank you very much. I don't think that was rehearsed, but assuming that it was, you did perfect to help us learn. So thank you for that. I return control at this point to our able Toastmaster, distinguished Toastmaster, Dr. Bryant. With one final comment, when you meant to say when you talked about thick PhDs, PhD stands for piled higher and deeper. Okay.
My brother Jimmy, who likes to chide me, says that PhD stands for something else. Now that I have hearing aids, he said PhD stands for partial hearing disability, which only your family members would find something so astute. Okay, let's move on. We have a timer's report on all of our evaluators.
We did.
Okay, on our last evaluator,
No, I didn't
general
count.
evaluator.
I didn't count it.
Okay,
I turned it off.
let's have our awards, and
Next
we
week's
need
schedule
our
first?
next week's schedule.
Next week's schedule. Evaluator 2 is Justin. Timer is Kelby. General evaluator is Sydney. Boy, we're hitting everybody, aren't we? Speaker 1 is Johanna. And evaluator 1 is Corky. On the hot seat is Ed Paul. Toastmasters Ray Jurgensen. And Randy Knowles. Speaker 2. Toastmaster is Mary Kraft. WAG is Scott Radford. Prayer and Pledge is Sandy Robinson. And then Pat Terry is the table topics.
Am I not scheduled to give the advanced?
You are.
Okay, so that's
Okay.
a long program. That's
It's
at
10 to
least
15, and then we found out that if we probably have time for at least a
Okay.
5-minute one.
Okay, time for our awards. Our best table topic today, Joanna. Best speaker, Rich. Best evaluator, Ed Patterson. And I hope that you, on your long-distance flight, just like Max Conrad, will be able to take frequent stops if you get discouraged so that you can indeed go the distance. And with that, thank you. I turn control over to our president. He says our meeting's over. Thank you. We went the distance.
Toastmaster recorded ballots on the